Hey, this is Grant Arthur, and welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse. Today, we have an episode with Reed Little. Reed, fellow Contrarian, you can see him on Rock Daydream Nation. Reed's everywhere. You can't miss the guy. But today, this is kind of a follow-up to our surf discussion that we had a month ago. We're looking at the Beach Boys' top 5 tracks. So, Reed's going to give his 5. Well, actually, we could go back and forth. We haven't discussed it yet, but we'll get there. But the Beach Boys, everyone knows the Beach Boys. Band from Hawthorne, California, formed in, I believe they formed in 1961, maybe? But anyway, they got signed to Capitol in 62. First album, Surf and Safari, came out the same year. But critics, very critically acclaimed, Pet Sounds is voted the number 2 album of all time from Rolling Stone. 100 million records sold worldwide. I mean, what can we say about the Beach Boys? It probably hasn't been said already. But anyway, a classic American band, and Reed and I are big Beach Boys fans. And Reed's the one who brought up this topic. So I applaud you, my friend. This is going to be interesting because
there's nothing I love more than leeching off of other people's channels to talk about music I love.
There you go. And you never know, if this goes well, we might do a different type of Beach Boys episode. Heck,
sure.
I don't know. Why not? There are topics galore that we can cover. So anyway, do we want to just go back and how do you want to do this? Do you want to go back and forth?
I think that's the most interesting way. Yeah, we'll count moving down from 5 to 1 back and forth.
Sounds great. All right, kids, let's get ready. So Reed, I'm going to have you start out with your number 5.
Okay, so just a little bit on my love of the Beach Boys. It started, as I mentioned in the Surf Rock chat, the Beach Boys were the first concert I ever saw. I was very young, probably 8 or 9 years old. I don't remember exactly. And right after that, my parents got me a copy of the Beach Boys' Endless Summer, a double kind of greatest hits album. And that album really was the soundtrack of my youth. I only had 5 records. I had 3 Kiss records, the Beach Boys, and the Beatles Red Collection for their early years.
That's the first one I got, was Beatles 62 to 66.
That is a fantastic set.
Yeah.
But in a way, any track off of Endless Summer could be one of my favorite Beach Boys songs. Right. I'm not by nature a nostalgic man, but to me, the Beach Boys is my happy music. It's the band that I cannot not be happy when listening to them. I love especially their singing harmonies. Nobody ever sang harmony like the Beach Boys. I know you had the Everly Brothers and the Righteous Brothers and the Mills Brothers, and you know what? I'll take the Beach Boys over any of those guys. They were fantastic. That's also what I loved about the early Beatles. And years later, I remember when I was growing up, my father was actually a member of the American Barbershop Quartet Revival Society, and I grew up around 4-part harmony singing. So that was just something that I brought with me into my love of music. And the Beach Boys embody that more than anybody. But because I love so much of the Beach Boys equally, I tagged my 5 favorite tracks for very specific reasons. So off of Shut Down Volume 2, perhaps one of their most widely understood or widely known tracks, I'm going with Fun, Fun, Fun. A track that people often don't really remember the title. They think it's, Daddy Took the T-Bird Away or something. But anyway, the name of the track is Fun, Fun, Fun. The song in and of itself is wonderful. It starts off with that great Chuck Berry homage guitar riff. There is so much Chuck Berry in the music of the Beach Boys. He was so influential on their sound. I think much more so than their contemporary surf rock peers. The Beach Boys were surf rock because of their lyrics, much more so than because they were playing the type of music that other surf bands were playing. But that aside, the reason why I particularly love this song comes from a pointless story from when I was in high school. So I've mentioned before, I grew up in a small town in Montana. And when I was, I think, a sophomore in high school, a kid moved to town who played electric guitar. I didn't know anybody in my high school who played electric guitar. So this kid moved to town, he played electric guitar. I can't even remember his name anymore. But I remember our choir director wanted to perform the Beach Boys' Fun, Fun, Fun. And he went to this kid and said, hey, can you play the intro for Fun, Fun, Fun before our choir does this song? And he's like, yeah, absolutely. So I wasn't part of any of the practices or anything like that. But on performance day, they get up there. This kid, it may be his first live performance ever, for all I know. And he goes, dee 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 snap, and he snaps his string. And then he just has to stand there looking like a dork for the he apparently was not an accomplished enough musician to be able to transpose that to another place. So he was just dead in the water and stood there holding his guitar on stage while people sang Fun, Fun, Fun. And in a way I felt really bad for him, but in another way it was hilarious. And that has stuck with me all these years. And I associate this song with that great moment. It probably wouldn't be nearly as high if I had been the person standing on stage with the broken string. But I was not. It provided great enjoyment when I was a kid, and I love that song.
Wow. Excellent choice. That was funny because how things in your earlier years just kind of trigger stuff and how you get turned on to things. But I didn't really get turned on to the Beach Boys until I was like in college. And I was in a band with my buddy Keith, and he was a big Beach Boys fan. Now, of course, I knew about the Beach Boys. It's not like I didn't. I mean, you would listen to radio or whatever. You hear Beach Boys songs. So I was aware of all the hits and stuff. But he turned me on to this record right here.
Starting at the top.
Starting at the top. He just couldn't believe that I was, he knew I was aware of them, but he was just surprised that I didn't. He said, it's incredible. You really need to check it out. So I checked it out. I think I ended up, I remember I had like the cassette of it. For some reason, I don't know why, but I had the cassette of Pet Sounds. And I remember listening to it. I just couldn't. For some reason, it took a long time for it really to gel with me. But once it did, it's just absolutely brilliant. But that's how I became, more familiar with the Beach Boys, was through my buddy Keith. But after that, I just soaked up everything I could possibly soak up. Became obsessed with the whole Smile period. I mean, it was hard to get that kind of stuff. But I remember there's some couple of record stores in town that you might be able to find a Beach Boys bootleg of Smile material, and we just ate that stuff up.
Right.
Back in the day, it wasn't. It's just a different world than it is now. All that stuff now you can probably find on the internet. But once I really understood the Beach Boys and really got them into my bloodstream, I just absolutely loved it and just took anything I could listen to in. It's just amazing. So based on that, I thought this was going to be a lot easier for me to choose my 5 favorite tracks. I thought it would be easy, but it was a lot harder than I thought. And any of these 5 tracks probably could be, one day they could be, number 5 could be number 1, number 2 could be number 5. I don't know. But this is what we're going with today. So my number 5, the recording sessions for this track started in October of '66. It was one of those tracks for the Smile sessions that Brian recorded. They ended up putting it on the shelf, and it didn't come out until 1971 Surf's Up album. So the song I'm talking about is Surf's Up.
Okay.
Now, whatever version you're familiar with or not familiar with, they're all good. The 1971 version was pretty much, Surf's Up was pretty much complete to some degree in '66, but they hadn't finished that third piece that's part of it. That was never finished. That was finished by I think Brian and Carl finished that up for the Surf's Up album, and maybe Al Jardine's on there too, if I remember right. But anyway, in 2011 they put out this Smile box set, which has, for the most part, the complete Surf's Up, even though that version was edited from two different versions, because the first two halves were there, but the third half wasn't there. So that was completed on there. But if you listen to it, it's absolutely brilliant. It is way better than the Surf's Up version. In fact, on this bootleg here, this is a bootleg. I'm not trying to promote bootlegs, but this bootleg is wonderful. This has got a lot of Smile tracks on it, and it's a 4 CD set with a super booklet. I mean, if you're going to do bootlegs, this is how you want to do them. I mean, it's absolutely wonderful. But there's versions on here that's got Smile with Brian doing all the vocals on it. I mean, absolutely stunning stuff. It's not finished, but in 2011, though, wait a minute, let me go back. See, I have so much to share. In 93, they put out this Beach Boys box set called, I think, wasn't it called Good Vibrations? It looked like a surfboard. They have a version of Surf's Up on there, but in 2011, they found like another version of it that was more complete, I think. I'm pretty sure that's correct. And that's what came out in the 2011 box set. Absolutely brilliant. Is it commercial? No. Mike Love didn't, he could care less for any of that material. Cabanescence, he had no use for that stuff. But lyrically, Van Dyke Park's lyrics are brilliant. What does it mean? I have no idea. And Van Dyke Parks never knew what anything meant either. It's just words that sounded good together. So it was recorded November 4th, 1966 through July of 71. So that's a long time. What can I say? Starts out with Brian on the piano, and it's got trumpet in the beginning. You'd have to check out, it's on Apple Music. You can find that version of Surf's Up that's on the box set. It's absolutely brilliant. And if that would have came out in like 67 before Pepper came out, who knows what would have happened with music, Because Brian Wilson was totally influenced by Rubber Soul to make Pet Sounds. The Beatles were influenced by Pet Sounds to make Sgt. Pepper. Had Smile came out before Sgt. Pepper, I don't know what would have happened, because if you look at the box set and what they put together, you'd be surprised how much of that Smile material is complete. It's just funny. I don't know if it was Brian's mental illness. I don't know what the problem is. Was it the flack from the Beach Boys giving Brian shit that they didn't like the material? But if you listen to the bootleg Smile sessions, Unsurpassed Masters, and you listen to the box set that came out in 2011, there's a lot of Beach Boys vocals on it. So, Brian was having them sing on everything. I know I'm going on a tangent, but check out Surf's Up if you can get on Apple Music or Spotify or something, and check out that version from the Smile sessions. Absolutely brilliant. And if you can't find that, look for Surf's Up on the Surf's Up album from 1971. It too is brilliant. Don't get me wrong. But I love it when we're taking all those sessions from the mid-60s and all of the, session guys that were the wrecking crew that were playing on it. It's just great stuff. So that's my number 5. It's brilliant. I could have chose a lot of different Smile tracks. But it was brilliant, and it's a shame it never came out back in the day. Might have changed music you would never have known. We might have looked at the Beach Boys differently today had Smile came out. I don't know.
It's possible. Anything's possible. For those that aren't really familiar with the Beach Boys, if you're watching this for the first time, it's a different concept now to think that here's this massive band that the guys didn't really play on the albums. In fact, Al Jardine has done a lot of interviews where he talks about, they would bring us these songs completed, and then we had to learn to reproduce on stage what had already been played by these guys who were massively great musicians. The Wrecking Crew. I don't know exactly who from the Wrecking Crew played on these records. I was listening to the Beach Boys long before I cared who was in the liner notes, right?
Right.
So, but it could have been Tommy Tedesco. Hell, it could have been Barney Kessel, one of the great jazz players of all time. I know. Oh my goodness, um, man, I am completely old man brain. Who
That's all
played
right.
Wichita lineman?
Glenn Campbell.
Glenn Campbell. Glenn Campbell played on some Beach Boys tracks. So these guys would be handed this complete music and then they would have to learn how to play it. But they always sang on the albums, which is, again, to me, the vocals are much more important than the music for the Beach Boys. I could just listen to a cappella versions of the Beach Boys. In fact, we're going to discuss that as we get towards the end of this. Because I'm going to make Grant's head explode. There's a little preview for you. Let's move on to my track number 4. Oops, sorry, I got 2 computers going here, so I'm grabbing the wrong mouse.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Trying to keep everything going. All right, go ahead.
My next selection, which turns out is off of the soundtrack from Cocktail in 1988. 1988 now. The Beach Boys were talking about starting off in 62. They really hit their stride 64, 65. But in 1988, they put out a little single called Kokomo. And that is one of my favorite Beatles songs. Good grief. Man, I really am out of it today. One of my favorite Beach Boys songs. For one thing, just the surprise of it. The fact that here it is, 1988, and this song went to number 1 in the United States. True. The Beach Boys! And the song it's everything I love in the Beach Boys. It's ridiculously happy. It's upbeat. It has fantastic vocal harmonies. I mean, it's musical candy floss, as they say across the pond, or cotton candy, as we say here. It's empty calories, but they are so tasty calories. And it just makes me want to pour a rum drink and go hang out by the pool and enjoy life. And what is wrong with that?
It was 1988. I mean, you could not escape this song. It was big. It was commercial. But the fact that the Beach Boys had not risen from the dead, they've always toured. Who would have thought that they would have set the charts on fire with this song in 1988?
It was a bit of a revival for the 60s, because isn't this right around the same time George Harrison had We Didn't Start the Fire? No, that was Billy Joel.
Cloud 9. George Harrison. Yeah, that.
Yeah. Got my mind set on you.
Got my mind set on you, yeah.
So it was weird, man. All these 60s pop stars were suddenly having hit records. But this song, like you say, you couldn't escape it. And I remember walking into, now I was in college in 1988, and I remember walking into the student union, and this song was playing over the PA, and I instantly went, that's the Beach Boys. Now in 1988, I was listening to nothing but heavy metal. Nothing but heavy metal. But I walked in and heard this song over the PA and went, that's the Beach Boys, and I was instantly happy. And then I had to explain to my metalhead friends why I loved the Beach Boys. And that was some interesting conversations. But man, I don't have to justify that. The Beach Boys are freaking awesome. If you don't like the Beach Boys, I don't know what to say. You're missing out some great music.
You are. But it's funny. Not that Cocktail was a great film by any means, but when you watch that footage when Kokomo is playing, it fit the scene perfectly. You know? It was what it was. It totally brought the Beach Boys back. I mean, I think they started really selling well at their concerts, and whether you like Kokomo or not, because it's kind of a divisive song amongst Beach Boys fans, But hey, it did wonders for the career.
That's what bless them. If you're a guy in by 88, I don't know how old these guys were, but they were no spring chickens in 1988, and they hadn't had a hit in 20 years. And to suddenly hit number one, man, that's more power to them. Anybody who can do it, more power to them.
Yeah, it's a great choice. I never thought I would see Kokomo in here, but hey, this is why you watch a show. You never know what you're going to get.
Very true.
All right. My number 4. So this is what Brian Wilson said. He said, back in 1991, I'd never written a song in my life. I was 19 years old, and I put myself to the test in my car one day. I was actually driving to a hot dog stand, and I actually created a melody in my head without being able to hear it on a piano. I sang it to myself. I didn't even sing it out loud in the car. When I got home that day, I finished the song, wrote the bridge, put the harmonies together, and I called it Surfer Girl. I had never read that before, and that was in 1961. So this song, you've got Surf and Safari, you've got Fun, 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 great songs, but for some reason, I always think that Surfer Girl is like the quintessential Beach Boys song for me. I love it's simple. The harmonies are beautiful. The stereo mix, we know that, Chuck Britz, he mixed all the Beatles. I did it too. The Beach Boys stereo tracks. Brian only could mix the mono stuff. But the stereo mix, to hear those harmonies and Brian's vocal, it just hits you. I love it. But this came out in 1963. It was on the Surfer Girl record. And it was on the single. The flip side was Little Deuce Coupe. So that was on July 22nd of 63. This was also the first record that credited Brian as the producer. So there you go. But Surfer Girl. I just think that is. I never get tired of it. I just think it's beautiful. The vocals are beautiful. What more can you do? What more can you say about it? It's classic.
All right.
So that would be my number 4.
Okay. Well, let's move on up to number 3 then. So I'm jumping back from 88 to 1963.
Okay.
Off of the album Little Deuce Coupe. Except this time, my track is I Get Around. So just like Fun, 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 I Get Around is basically everything I love in a Beach Boys track. It's got this wonderful Chuck Berry homage guitar. It even has a guitar solo overdubbed with saxophone. Oh, man. Now I'm losing it. But it's got a pretty good guitar solo in it, which you don't get in a lot of surf music. It has this 1960s like Frankie Valli kind of 4-part harmony, but done to a much more rock soundtrack. A lot of the popular music in the 60s was really a blend of jazz and pop. So you get that Frankie Valli is really playing over in effect, big band music, right? It's something that Frank Sinatra or Dean Martin might have sang to. Whereas the Beach Boys are taking those same vocal ideas, including that massive falsetto that you get from Mike Love. In fact, he's singing so high at points in the song that I can't understand what he's saying. It's just like this dog whistle all the way up at the top. And there's something about, he's talking about cruising and going from town to town, and the chicks love his car. And it's so bizarrely, innocently macho, this idea of, the bad guys know us and they leave us alone. And I mean, check out the Beach Boys there in Grant's graphic Are those 5 guys you're going to be intimidated by in any circumstance? No. But at least in this fictional context of these buddies who are driving around from town to town impressing the chicks, they're something that people watch out for. And again, it's so innocent. That concept is actually kind of aggressive, but the music just sounds so wonderful and happy. And again, those lovely harmonies, but it has that ever so slightly harder edge. I mean, I don't want to oversell it. It's not, Dick Dale, but
no.
It's got great electric guitar on it. And when you can combine good guitar riffs along with that 4-part harmony, it just doesn't get any better than that. Well, I say that it gets better than that at least twice. It
gets better. Yeah, at least. That's an excellent choice. I can't argue with that at all. I can't argue with it. That's why I'm saying this was very hard for me to do. But if we're doing top 5, well, got to go with your top 5.
I set myself a rule that I was only going to choose one song from Pet Sounds.
Well,
that was my rule. Clearly you don't have to follow that. So
no, I don't have a rule. I'm just going by tracks that I absolutely but I might have a Pet Sounds track on here.
I would be surprised if you didn't. All right, let's hear it. What's your 3?
Oh, number 3. Okay, we're going back to the Smile sessions for a song called Wonderful. This was originally recorded August 25th through December 15th of 1966. Again, Brian Wilson's Van Dyke Parks. And this is one of those other tracks that appeared on Smiley Smile. Unlike Surf's Up, but a Wonderful did appear. It was released, at least it appeared in 1967, but Carl sang it. And it was very sparse arrangement. It was like organ and something else. I don't remember. It was very sparse. Not orchestral, nothing as overly produced as what was on Smile.
Right.
This has been released twice, and the version that I think is just absolutely beautiful is the Smile version. The Smile version has an extra verse that's not on Smiley Smile. It's got Brian doing the vocals. It's got the rest of the Beach Boys doing the backing vocals. And it's totally arranged, totally different than what came on the sparse version on Smiley Smile. If you really think about it, I'm kind of jumping the gun, but the Beach Boys back when they were working on Smile were a little bit jarred, they were a little bit worried about Smile being, we're not going out to the beach and surfing. Heck, this isn't even Pet Sounds material, This is way beyond what we were doing. But if you listen to Smiley Smile, that's even a weirder record than I think Smile would have ever been. So a lot of this Beach Boys lure and all this that you hear, I just don't understand. But Smiley Smile's a weird record.
Sure.
This version of Wonderful is a lot more accessible, I would say, and the vocals are absolutely beautiful.
I don't think I've heard that version.
Okay.
I need to track that down.
So it was on Good Vibrations 30 Years of the Beach Boys in 93. And it came out on the Smile Sessions in 2011. And to my ears, it was complete. It's totally complete. So I would recommend you checking it out. Like on this box, there is some outtakes from it, because this pretty much has the whole version of Brain Problem. See, you and I are having brain problems today. Wonderful. It's got a lot of outtakes from Wonderful that didn't make it on the legit Capitol box set. But it's fascinating on here because it practically goes through the whole production of the track and how, Brian built upon it. So you can just kind of go through it. This is great. I'm not promoting bootlegs, kids, but I mean, if you're a hardcore bootleg, Beach Boys fan, you know what this is. But It's great. It's the only song that was on Smile that was really like a boy-girl song, because it was, the lyrics tell the story of a girl who met this boy who disrupts her whole devotion to God and her parents. That's what it's about. It's the only song on there that deals with anything like that. But I don't know. Just to hear Brian in the studio playing the harpsichord, singing along with it, overdubbing his vocals, and then the Beach Boys coming in and dumping all their vocals on top of it. It's just absolutely one of the greatest moments, I think, during the whole Smile sessions. So I'm going, that's my number 3. Though,
Okay.
like I said, Reed, this could be number 1 one day. You never know. But yeah, look for that, track it down. It's on Apple Music, and it's probably on Spotify. But it's just amazing. And it just totally wipes the floor of what the Smiley Smile version was.
Huh.
I mean, you've
Okay.
got a Brian vocal here. So anytime you have Brian singing the lead vocal, you know it's got to be
Yes. And yet, Carl has his moments.
good. Oh, yeah, I love Carl. But, some of the, back in the day when you couldn't listen to any of these Smile tracks or
Right?
any of these Pet Sounds tracks before they put the box sets out, you always wondered what really they sounded like in the beginning. So there's another, I can't remember, this is still jumping the gun, but whatever, I'm going to talk about it. They put out what year? 93, 94, 95. They put out that big Pet Sounds box set.
Okay.
I
I don't know, but yeah.
Okay, they did. So it's like 4 CDs. But before that, the reason they started putting all that stuff out is because of all these Sea of Tunes box sets. This is the volume 1 that's got 4 CDs. There's also a volume 2 with 4 CDs. So you've got 8 CDs of Pet soundtracks. I'm going to talk about a song later that's on here that's absolutely, any Beach Boys fan should listen to it. But anyway, yeah, there's 8 CDs, and I don't know if you know the story of this bootleg. I know we're going off track, but this is what's fun.
I don't know the story of any bootleg, so feel free to feel free.
Do you remember that Beach Boys? There was a documentary about the Beach Boys that was done in the 80s. What was the name of that? I can see the logo. If we were only going live, someone could put that in the comments. Okay. American Dream. I think it was called American Dream.
Okay.
Okay. Now, what had happened, evidently, they were granted access, someone was granted access to the Beach Boys library, tape library, during this documentary. Now, I don't know how about someone got in there, but they took all of the master tapes and they dubbed them over.
Oh, wow.
So all this stuff, all these unsurpassed masters, Beach Boys, are master tape quality. Not futzed with, just straight copies of the master, the multi-track tapes. A lot of the stuff's mixed in stereo too. So for Beach Boys fans, I mean, this is like the
and yet people wonder why musicians get so paranoid sometimes.
They do. Well, this is why they brought out the Smile box set, the Pet Sounds box set, and they put out like the Beach Boys Party, because there's a version on Unsurpassed Masters, which it's the Beach Boys Party tracks without, all the party noises. It's just them with acoustic guitars just singing, them with acoustic guitars with vocals.
Right.
Simple. And it's
Beautiful.
absolutely beautiful. If you can get rid of all the, party atmosphere on Party, there's beautiful vocals on that record. Just recommended that. But I know they put out, Capitol, I think, put out a version of that. So I know I'm going on a tangent, but
whatever else you say about the Beach Boys, those dudes could sing. They were fantastic performers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So that was wonderful, even though I totally...
No, No,
I'm
it's all
getting
good.
all geeky with all this stuff. So I told you, Reed, I'm into it.
No, I'm loving it.
All right.
All right, we'll move on to number 2. This is off of the album Surfin' USA. Now, if you're a very casual Beach Boys fan, Surfin' USA may be what you know, or California Girls, but there's a little track off of this, perhaps the shortest song I love. It's less than 2 minutes long, off of Surfin' USA, and that is Shut Down.
Yes.
Grant and I were talking, I think after the last chat we did on Surf Rock, I like the car songs the Beach Boys did better than I like the surfing songs. I could never relate to the surfing, but the cars, 409, Little Deuce Coupe, and Shut Down. Shut Down is so full of drag racing porn that it single-handedly made me love hot rods.
Mm-hmm.
After growing up listening to that song, when I got to be driving age, I started getting Hot Rodder magazine and, talking about, blowing engines, got to port my heads and blah, blah, blah. And the funny thing is I never actually owned a muscle car. I eventually got into sports cars when I was a little older and had some money, but never did get into muscle cars. But muscle car culture and drag racing culture, I love it. And this song was apparently written with the lyrics based on a poem about a drag race. And the poem is considerably longer, but they distill that into less than 2 minutes. It's like 1 minute and 52 seconds about a guy with his fuel injected 1963 Stingray racing a Dodge Dart with a 413 cubic inch engine. And it's so geeky that that he's got a fuel injected Stingray and the other guy's got a 413 cubic inch Dart. And it talks about, the lights declining to 1 and they accelerate. And what I really love about the track is the guy. So it's sung by the guy who's driving the fuel injected Stingray. And he's like, yeah, I'm starting to catch up and I'm going to win this. But you can tell he's losing. Because right off of the line, the Dart beats him off the line. The guy's describing my slicks are spinning and I'm burning my clutch out trying to get traction. And the Dart is out in front of him. And he's like, yeah, but I'm catching up now. And this fuel injected engine's going to take care of business. But he's only got a quarter mile to do it in, right? There's zero way he's going to make that happen. So I love the fact that the track is so detailed that you can actually get those kind of things out of it. It's amazing. And it's got all those other fantastic Beach Boys things. It's got the harmonies, some great little, very small but good guitar licks in it. It's primarily a vocal song, with less than 2 minutes of music to work with. You don't have time to mess around. So it's in, out. It tells the story of this drag race. It actually ends before it ends and leaves you feeling good, even though I'm pretty sure the guy lost.
Yeah. But you know what's great about the production on those, because I don't think Brian was really producing yet. I'm sure he was, but he didn't get any production credit. But Chuck Britz, the engineer, those records just sound wonderful.
They do.
Because,
every track on that sounds fantastic.
Because we know as Brian liked Phil Spector, he liked that wall of sound, as Brian kept going, he kept building on it. You know how things ended up. But those early Beach Boys songs, they're all very basic, just a basic rock band with great vocals. But Chuck Britz, holy crap, a great engineer. He made the Beach Boys sound wonderful, And those early Beach Boys records are great.
I mean, there's a reason those records caught on so fast. And a reason that these guys were able to compete with the Beatles when the Beatles hit in 1964. They had great songs. They had great sounding records. They were functionally the only thing America had going in that realm. Everything else was, again, it was your doo-wop singers, your Frankie Valli. It was, your Motown sound. It was, it's a little later in the 60s. But if you're talking about straight up rock and roll, the Beach Boys were what we had.
Yep, totally agree. All right. My number 2. Now we're heading into Pet Sounds.
Oh, interesting. At number 2. Okay. All right, go.
Well, this song, I think's, well, to me, it's perfection. Carl's doing the lead vocal on it. It's beautiful. The rest of the Beach Boys sound wonderful. There is another version that I've heard, and I can't remember if it's on the Sea of Tunes box set. I think it's on the Sea of Tunes Unsurpassed Masters, but there's a version of Brian singing it. No, I take that back. I don't know, but there's a couple of versions. Have you ever heard? They were supposed to release a live album in '67 called "Late in Hawaii." Do you remember? Do you know anything about that?
I do not. No, that's a story.
Well, they were supposed to release a live album. Later on, Capitol put that out on a compilation, and for the life of me, I was going to pull it, but something 1967. Someone could tell in the comments. But they did some sessions prior to Late in Hawaii. So they got together and they practiced what they were going to play in the Hawaii concert. And they recorded off of it. They did a version that's very simple, just like organ and everybody huddling around and singing God Only Knows. And it's just absolutely beautiful. Very bare bones. I love it when you hear very minimal instrumentation and just those glorious Beach Boys vocals.
Yes.
Everything stripped down, and just to hear them, and it's just absolutely gorgeous. But again, I'm on a tangent. But anyway, but God Only Knows on Pet Sounds is probably one of the most beautiful tracks on the record. Well produced. The instrumentation is just wonderful. Like I said, Carl's vocals are absolutely. But the version that I heard with Brian singing it, it's not that much different. Carl has a little bit more sweeter tone than Brian does. But the whole thing with this is that there was an interview with Brian Wilson once, and he said that the reason he wrote God Only Knows was an attempt to match the Beatles album Rubber Soul. Since he was so into Rubber Soul, this was kind of like a song that was like a reaction to that record, which I think I found. I found that interesting too, you know. But I do know that he was smoking marijuana when he wrote it. I did read something about that. So maybe that's why we have the whole God thing. But it's great, you know. It's very kind of baroque-y. And funny thing is, well, it's not funny, but this is one of the songs that he wrote with Tony Asher. And for you don't know this, you know, Brian would work on these records while the Beach Boys were out on tour, and he'd use different collaborators. And for this album, he used Tony Asher, who was in the accounting, not in the accounting world, but wasn't he like an architect, or what was he? I forget. But somehow he was. Oh, you're on mute.
Damn it, sorry. Said I just watched a video on this yesterday, and yeah, Tony Asher was not a musician. Well, he may have been a musician, obviously, but he wasn't like part of the Wrecking Crew or a known songwriter. No. He was just somebody that Brian Wilson had heard singing around the office and went, "Hey, you want to write a song together?" And apparently there was a lot of debate over this track on whether they were going to include the word God, because it was one of the first American rock singles that had the word God in it. And they were like, should we call it Gosh Only Knows? And they came up with alternate lyrics, which were not recorded because, you know, Brian eventually went, no, all of that's stupid. We're just going to call it God Only Knows.
Yeah. I can't imagine it being called anything else. But yeah, that's my number 2.
Wow! Now I can't wait to see your number 1. So I did not expect to be having this conversation yet at number 2. I have to mention that. So we're going to leave the Pet Sounds graphic up as we move into my number 1.
Okay.
Because now I set myself a rule. I was only going to have one track.
We're going to actually go with the Pet Sounds graphic. There you go.
From Pet Sounds, just one track.
Okay.
And I love God Only Knows. There have been multiple covers of it that I love. There have been covers that were terrible. I'm not, as much as I love David Bowie, I am not overly fond of his cover of God Only Knows, which was off of Tonight.
I was going to say pinups, but maybe it was Tonight.
No, it's Tonight. Yeah, he released the album that he put out after Let's Dance.
Okay.
Not that it's bad. It doesn't add anything to the song, So if you're doing a cover, you always have to be able to say, I added to or am different than the original song. Otherwise, the original song is there. Why do I need your cover? And when you start off with a song that is so universally praised, and, again, Paul McCartney, I was just watching a video yesterday. I watched a lot of videos on God Only Knows because I did a search on YouTube for this song so I could watch the video, and then of course it fills your feed with videos and of Paul McCartney going, oh yeah, God Only Knows is the best song that Brian Wilson ever wrote. He sang a duet with Brian Wilson at one point for this song in some like TV show or something. I don't know, maybe it was on concert. But I have an issue with God Only Knows as recorded on Pet Sounds. I don't think the music is as brilliant as the vocals. The vocal harmony, the lyrics, it's a 12 out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
The music's an 8 out of 10. Which, it's hard to criticize perfection, but it just doesn't do it for me. It's just so of the time. It could have been like Nancy Sinatra or anybody who is singing in a similar, you could have had Frank Sinatra or Dean Martin. I keep throwing those guys out. The Rat Pack would have sung over this backing track, and it really wouldn't have changed anything. It was just now there are some things, a little drum line at the end, but what makes the song work are the vocal harmonies and the vocal round that goes at the end. And you can find a cappella versions of this song, and I think they're fantastic. And there's, of all things, famously a video game, BioShock Infinite. They've got a barbershop quartet that does 15 seconds of God Only Knows, and it sounds amazing. Now, again, I love barbershop quartet music. I know that's strange for a guy who was a lifelong heavy metal fan, but there you go.
No, it's not strange.
So it is one of the best songs ever, but it's not my favorite off Pet Sounds. If my favorite has to come from my heart, and the song that I enjoy more than any other song off of Pet Sounds is Sloop John B.
I'll be darned.
Now, this is a song that they kind of wrote. It's not a Beach Boys original, though, because it's a traditional song from the Caribbean. Maybe not the exact lyrics or the exact arrangement, but they took those Caribbean ideas in this more or less a traditional folk song from the Caribbean and turned it into the Sloop John B. And it's just so catchy. And even though it's about this guy's worst trip at sea, it's so happy. In a very weird way. So my wife really got into listening to American Depression era music, right? For if anyone remembers when the album or when the movie Oh Brother Where Art Thou came out, there was this big Depression era music revival in the United States. And Terry was listening to a lot of this Depression era music, like the Big Rock Candy Mountain. And I know that's a strange comparison, but if you listen to this guy telling his tales of woe, the Rock Candy Mountain is his idea of heaven. And it includes these really stupid lines like he wants to go someplace where all the cops have flat feet and the dogs have no teeth, so that he can jump on these trains and not get bit by police or police dogs, and that the police can't run and catch him, right? It's just so sad that what he thinks is great. And Sloop John B actually kind of reminds me of that. You're like, oh yeah, the first mate, he got drunk and got into a fight and they threw him in jail and this trip sucks and I just want to go home. And yet listening to it, I'm just so happy. The song is just so happy.
Mm-hmm.
And you can picture people singing this as they're hoisting the sails on the boat, and the passengers are drinking their rum drinks, and everybody is having a good time. And I love it.
Can't argue with that. I just wish it wasn't on Pet Sounds.
It's it's the most out song on Pet Sounds. I think that's
Has nothing to do with because Pet Sounds is almost a concept album to some degree.
right.
And Sloop John B, even though it fits on the record production wise, fits right in. The lyrical content doesn't necessarily go along with what else is on there,
Definitely
It would
true.
have been
And
better as
yet,
a standalone single. But, Capitol's trying to, hey, we're going to throw this on here too.
this is it's there's a concept in Japanese Zen that you emphasize perfection with imperfection, right? If you go to a Zen garden, there's an imperfect thing in a Zen garden. And that's the art. The art isn't to make it perfect. The art is to take that one imperfect thing and emphasize perfection with it. And for me, Sloop John B is that thing that emphasizes the perfection of the rest of the album. But as a thing of in and of itself, I just love that song.
Yeah, well, I love it too. I have no issues with it other than it's on a record it shouldn't be on. But I looked it up. What you need to look for is in 2017, Capitol put out a compilation record, it's got stereo mixes of Wild Honey on it, and
Okay.
it's got the Laid in Hawaii tracks. It's called Sunshine Tomorrow, and it's got like the stained glass picture of the Wild Honey cover, and it's 1967. Look for that and check out God Only Knows on that, and it's just absolutely going to blow you away.
Are you saying that live album was laid in Hawaii?
Yeah,
So referring to the flower thing, but
yeah,
still, that's pretty damn cheeky for 1967.
it is. Of course, it never was released, but I mean, all those tracks came out. I mean, it's all on here.
Right.
But I'm looking. Got to scroll. There's the version that's on here. It's not the live. It says it's live, but I'm pretty sure it's the rehearsal version. Either way, check that out. You will love it.
It sounds like I will.
Yeah, it's top notch. Okay. My number one. Let me get my thing up here. My number one is Wouldn't It Be Nice?
Oh,
Which
yeah.
is the A side of God Only Knows. Talk about the perfect single. But me personally, this is my ultimate Beach Boys song. I never get tired of it. They started recording this back in January '66 at Gold Star. In fact, there's only two songs on this record that were recorded at Gold Star. This and I can't remember what else, something else. But I noticed that they had a lot of trouble recording this. I know I've been talking bootlegs, and I don't know if this is on the domestic Pet Sounds box set, but the alternate Pet Sounds Volume 1 set has one of the greatest versions. It has the version of Wouldn't It Be Nice with all Brian vocals on it.
Okay.
The whole thing, all the backgrounds. If you really want to listen to something, that's something to listen to. But when they recorded this, the band had a lot of trouble getting the vocals right on it because the vocals are very intricate on this, and Brian had him do multiple takes to get it right. But the whole thing about this record that I remember is like back when I was first listening to this, it's, the lyrics describe a young couple fantasizing about, their romantic freedom when they become adults and, how they want to be able to be with each other and hold each other all through the night. And, when they say goodnight, they can stay together, and the whole thing about growing up and finding a mate and that whole young love thing. It's just got so much hope, and just when you're at that age and everything, you're just, your glands are going crazy, and one gland's calling to the other, and just that whole young love thing. It's got so much hope, and the production and the vocalization of it just makes me think back to a simpler time, And I just think it's a great way to start out the record. And it kind of sets the pace for the whole rest of the album. Since the whole rest of the album is all relationship, boy-girl relationship based. There's no drag racing on this. There's no
Right.
surfing. It's all about young love and relationships.
And now you look back at that and think the band was so scared of this album. And
it was departure.
I remember a quote from Mike Love telling, this was something Mike Love told Brian Wilson, although it may have been in a different context, but he told him, don't F with the formula.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And he was like, I don't know what we're going to do with all of these songs about young love. That's not who we are. Well, now it is, because that was the genius of Brian Wilson.
Right.
And then to put out Good Vibrations after this, that was basically the last legacy track for the Beach Boys that they would carry forward for the rest of their career until you got to Kokomo. So
and this was the last of the big productions. Well, Sunflower, I would say, is a pretty big production. Brian had his hand in Sunflower, but this was like the end of the era,
right.
Until, we've got Smile now, so that continued on, but they were never quite the same after this, that's for sure.
No. And you think about the compression of time here. Again, people, if you're watching this and you don't know the Beach Boys, we just talked about 4 years of albums, 1962 to 1966. Well, Grant threw in a couple of outliers from Smile, and I have Kokomo in 1988.
But all that stuff was recorded in 66 that I was talking about, so we're still
So 66. There you go. 4 years. So based on those 4 years, they were still one of the most popular bands of the 60s, a little bit less so once you get into the hippie era, the psych era, once the Doors start taking over. But then in the 70s, and I absolutely love this, every 4th of July, the Beach Boys used to put on a free concert at the Washington Monument in Washington, D.C. And I lived back in the suburbs of D.C. for a while when I was a kid. My dad worked for the federal government, and he would absolutely refuse to take us into town to see the show, but you could listen to it on the radio. So on the 4th of July every year, I got to hear another Beach Boys concert until James Watt came in as Secretary of the Interior and shut it down. It's a really funny story if you look up James Watt's fight with rock and roll, because he said he didn't want those people doing the 4th of July performance.
The Beach Boys.
The Beach Boys.
We don't want anything like that here.
Those darn Beach Boys.
Those dirty hippies. We don't want them.
So good times. But 4 years of astounding creativity, which then lasted for the rest of their lives.
And you wonder why Brian Wilson. Of course, Brian Wilson was burned out. As much material as he was cranking out and trying to write and produce, and it's a wonder. It's a wonder. Those 4 years, nobody could have done that.
No.
You wouldn't expect artists like that to do it now, but it was of its time.
Yeah, I don't. Geez, who? The only contemporary band I can think of is Marco's beloved King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard that puts out an album multiple times a year. But quality and quantity rarely go hand in hand. Rarely. And perhaps the Beach Boys are the best indication that there was somebody out there who was so creative that he could consistently put out this astounding music, just album after album after album, multiple times a year. and just keep doing it. And the fact that he lasted 4 years, I mean, that's like a 10-year career for
At
any other
least,
band.
Yeah,
So,
Brian was done. Though he was still, if you listen to a lot of these Boots, and actually that Sunshine CD, Brian's still running the show in the studio. Are these productions are elaborate as they were? No. It's just Brian and the Beach Boys in the studio for the most part. But he's still running the show.
right.
You know, and all that you always thought that Brian was just not doing anything. Like he's, you know, some recluse, but no. You listen to these bootlegs, you listen to these tracks, and Brian is still doing the exact same thing Brian was doing on Pet Sounds, on Beach Boys Today, Summer Days, Summer Nights, doing the same thing. It's just lower, you know, it's just not up at that level with all the studio musicians, you know. Still doing it though.
Right. And
Yeah,
again,
great
people,
stuff.
there's a direct line from the Beach Boys to the Who, and
Oh,
from
well,
the
yeah.
Who to hard rock. So, you know, if it's not like they are not part, if you're a hard rock fan, the Beach Boys are part of hard rock's DNA. It may not sound like it when you're listening to it, but that's because you're listening to it after decades of evolution. But they
Right.
are absolutely in that line.
Yeah, I think wasn't Keith Moon's favorite band the Beach Boys? I do
It
believe
absolutely
that's true.
was. And the Who have a terrible cover of Barbara Ann on the
It was on
Who
an EP.
plays. Yeah, I've got it as an extra track on the Who plays. Oh, doggone it! Their first album, the Who plays My Generation.
Right.
Sheesh. But
See, Reeve,
yeah,
we're
it's
going
terrible.
way back in time. It's hard to bring some of this up.
You know, we have to give it some love, though.
I
It's
know.
let's see here. I mean, this is from before I was born,
Right.
but I still love it.
Well, I was born when Pet Sounds came out, but all this was. Like I said, I wasn't aware of it really until like 1988.
Yeah.
Like I said, I heard all the 45s, I heard the hits, and I just thought the Beach Boys were just fluff. Just surfing, cars. I owe a lot to my buddy Keith for turning me on to this stuff because he said, oh no, Grant, it's a lot more than that.
Everyone, go get yourself a copy of Endless Summer and Pet Sounds. And if you just listen to those two, your life will be better.
It will. It was a simpler time then. Yeah. But there's just so much hope, and it's just brilliant stuff. Brilliant stuff. I guess that pretty much covers it.
I think it does.
Reed,
for a future chat, you want to move down to the next level in American hard rock evolution and do the Doors?
I will do. You want to do Doors? We can do Doors. I'm ready for the Doors.
All right, we can. We'll discuss specifics offline, but maybe that'll be the next Grant and Reed.
The Doors, kids, look for the Doors coming up. But Reed, is there anything you need to plug, or are there any shows you're coming up on? Contrarians, Pete's channel? I don't know. Is there anything coming up?
Oh, these days I honestly have no idea. I think I've got 6 or 7 things that have been recorded for the Contrarians that haven't gone up.
They're in the can, yeah.
I think Peter put up our most recent chat. We did a chat on irreplaceable band members, which I quite enjoyed. But nope, I'm just the perennial guest and super glad to be here in the Rock Warehouse.
I appreciate you coming on. So yeah, kids, look for the Doors coming up. But let me, since I've got your attention, let me promote some things that I've put up. There's an ongoing series on the channel called Cheapy Bin Finds, where I go through and I'm just going through the bins, and I'm pretty much buying CDs because CDs are cheap. So it's like everything that's under $2. And I'm just going and I'm just sharing you what I find and what I recommend. Because you never know. You take chances on this stuff and you might really find a gem. You might have had one of these CDs that are in a cheapy bin years ago and you traded it in and you probably forgot the record for for all that matters. But anyway, Nick Squire and I are going to do the next one, even though we don't have a date set up for it, but he wants to come on. He's got stuff to share, but I'm going to have to go out and find some stuff to share with the class. So that's coming up. The other thing I just put up recently was the video on the second British invasion. Everybody knows the first British invasion, the Beatles, Thompson. I was going to say Thompson Twins. The Beatles, the Hollies, all those bands back in the Rolling Stones, for crying out loud. But the second British invasion was pretty much spurred by the whole MTV movement. So you've got Flock of Seagulls, Duran Duran, Spandau Ballet, ABC, all those bands. So this, I thought, was going to go for like an hour, and I think it went for 2 hours. I swear to God. But it was a great discussion, had a great panel. It was a lot of fun. The other thing that's coming up, and it's posted right now. Ryan Gavalier and I are going to do a Cheap Trick upcoming live stream. That's going to be tomorrow, where we're going to talk about In Color and the first Cheap Trick album, Cheap Trick. So we're just doing a basic album review, and we're going to go through the entire catalog, and that's probably going to take us, Lord knows how long that's going to take us. It's going to take us a while. So look forward to that. Devo, Bicycle Legs and Todd Evans and I are going to do a Devo show where we're looking at our favorite album tracks. Kind of like this show with Pet Sounds, but we're going to go through each Devo record, pick one track that's our favorite, and talk about it. So that's coming up too. So look forward to that. And then the final thing I want to promote is Friday Night Chat, which is a new series that I'm going to launch. So every other Friday, it's just going to have a different topic, and anybody who wants to come on can come on. If you don't want to come on, leave a comment, put a question out to the panel. And I can't tell you who's coming on this because I really don't know. We're just going to roll with it and see what happens. So the first one we're doing is on June 17th at 8 p.m. Now, it might be at 8:30. I don't know yet. There's another show going on before it. I may have to shift it, but 8:30. Right now we're going with 8. And the topic is records you spent way more money on than you'd like to admit. And we all have done it. There's always been those records you've always wanted that you thought, well, should I really spend the money? And you question yourself and you just go ahead and go for it. So this is a time where everyone can confess their sins, open your heart up, talk to the panel, and we just love to hear your stories. So that's going to be the final thing I'm going to promote here. There's so much stuff coming up. Contrarian stuff, Rock Daydream Nation. You know what I'm talking about, Reed. There's a lot.
It's an active community.
It's an active community. So you guys anybody wants to join on all these, feel free, but that's what's coming up on my channel. And then I guess this wraps it up.
I think it does.
Look down the road for Reed and I doing a Doors show. We are going to discuss that and get that on the books. Other than that, Reed, I enjoyed 100% talking Beach Boys with you.
Me too.
Blast.
I haven't been able to talk Beach Boys with anyone in years. Had a great time.
I don't have anybody right now that can even rap Beach Boys anymore.
Huh.
You're the only one that I know that I can rap Beach Boys with. So I thank you, sir.
Hopefully we'll convert some people. Go listen to the Beach Boys, you heathens.
Yeah, do that. All right, this is Grant from Grant's Rock Warehouse and Reed Little. And we'll see you on the next one.
All right. Be
Bye.
good.
Bye.